Imagine this: a man sets his wife on fire because he suspects her of infidelity. Sounds like something from a dark, twisted movie, right? But tragically, this horror unfolded in real life in Abagana, Anambra State, Nigeria. Mrs. Blessing Nwanna is no longer with us because her husband, Mr. Sunday Nwanna, decided that fire was an appropriate response to a heated argument. Now, let's pause for a second and ask, what on earth makes a man think this is okay? Is it rage? Is it insecurity? Or is it a toxic cocktail of cultural expectations, unchecked emotions, or societal silence on male vulnerability? Why are men in some cultures like this? I think it's toxic masculinity. That cultural expectation that tells men they must always be in control, they can't cry, they can't ask for help, and definitely can't let their wife have any questionable freedom. Imagine living your entire life in a mental cage where the only emotion you're allowed to express is anger. It's like giving someone one tool for life, a hammer, and then being shocked when they go around smashing everything. When you combine this with patriarchal norms that treat women like property, it's a recipe for disaster. Men feel entitled to control their partners, and when they sense or even imagine that control is slipping, it's not just their pride that is hurt, it's their entire identity. And let's not forget the societal pressure that whispers, "What will people think of you? If you don't react, are you not going to do something about it? You're weak." Why do they resort to burning? Why violence? Now, let's get into Mr. Sunday's head for a minute. He's suspicious of his wife. He's angry. He feels like he's losing control. But instead of talking it out with his wife, hey, my dear, hey, Blessing, hey, wife, can we discuss this? What does he do? He escalates the situation to a point of no return. But why? Because he doesn't know any other way. No one ever taught him that there's a difference between feeling angry and acting on it. It's like a toddler throwing a tantrum, but instead of a juice box or a toy, it's a human life that is on the line. The real problem in these cultures is that men do not understand anything that you mean by the word feelings. Let's ask another question. When was the last time you saw a man in this kind of culture say, "I'm struggling emotionally," or "I feel insecure"? Never. It never happens. Therapy is a foreign concept because seeking help is seen as weak. Instead, they bottle it up until it explodes in the worst possible ways. Imagine if Mr. Sunday had been taught to pause and reflect before reacting. What if he had been taught about how to communicate? What if he'd been told it's okay to feel jealous or scared, but it's not okay to act on those feelings in harmful ways? Therapy isn't just for crazy people or women with too much time on their hands. It's for anyone who wants to handle life better. And let's face it, Mr. Sunday could have used a few sessions. That would have averted this problem. Why does this keep happening in most African nations? Men in cultures that glorify toxic masculinity are walking around with emotional blindfolds. They've been told that violence is strength and silence is power. They've been handed down a rulebook that says don't fail, don't talk, just dominate. And when things go wrong, they lash out because they have no idea, you know, of what to do, or they go around blaming their wives. Society plays its role too. We often turn a blind eye to the warning signs. the controlling behavior, the isolation of partners, the small bursts of anger that grow over time, treating wives as strangers. By the time the alarm bells are ringing, it's already too late. Now, what can we do about this? Because this isn't just a Nigerian problem. Toxic masculinity is everywhere. It just wears different outfits depending on the culture. But here's the good news, it is possible to change. What if boys were taught from a young age that it's okay to cry? What if they're taught that real strength is admitting when you're struggling? What if men were given the tools to communicate their feelings instead of being told to man up? Therapy needs to be normalized. It's not just for women, but for men too. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. Imagine a world where men don't bottle up their emotions until they explode, where they know how to sit down, take a deep breath, and say, I'm hurt. Let's talk. Mrs. Blessing Nwanna's story is heartbreaking. It really is. But it's also a wake up call that we need to address toxic masculinity, promote emotional intelligence, and create safe spaces for men and women alike, because marriage or any relationship for that matter is definitely not something worth killing for. So here's the real question, how many more blessings need to die before we take this seriously? And dear men, isn't it enough time to consider doing therapy